But we're happy to take some questions. Yes.
This is all happening while your colleagues on the other side of the aisle are discussing legislation, while we expect the climate provisions to scale back to get Senator Manchin on board. There will be provisions in there aimed at reducing emissions. What is your prediction of the effects of that legislation on the market?
Well, the effect, if they were able to pass that legislation, which I think would be bad across the board, I think you'd see even more expensive prices of things, not just energy, but across the board. It would accelerate inflation, and it's been fun to watch Larry Summers debate Janet Yellen about that very concept, because, of course, Larry Summers is an economist who was with both the both the Obama as well as the Clinton administration. You'll see a much higher cost of energy. I think you'll have much less reliable energy. We see what happens in California, where they have the highest energy costs in the country, and they have the most unreliable grid. So, you talk about the kind of rolling blackouts they've had there with a lot of their mandates. I think you're going to see higher costs and less reliable energy if they're able to pass what every one of us is here trying to stop.
John,
Leanne. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
I really want to underscore just how radical this policy direction that the Democrats and Biden are taking. If you look at the history of our country, every president, Democrat, Republican, every Secretary of Energy, every Secretary of the Treasury, by the way, have always been about more energy, energy independence, more resource development, because as was earlier stated, we have the highest standards on the environment of any place in the world. And the fact that, I'll give you one example in my discussions with Janet Yellen during the confirmation process. Will you commit, like every Secretary of the Treasury since Alexander Hamilton, to push for a robust, all-of-the-above energy sector? The Secretary of the Treasury, for the first time in American history, would not commit to that. That's why I voted against her. So this is policy that is a sharp break from any other policy, previous administration in the history of the country. And I think it's really important to underscore that, and we're seeing the negative impacts on so many Americans. But this is radical, and it's a shift from literally any previous administration in U.S. history.
Let me add something as well. In essence, that's a tax and spend policy that will actually increase the inflation that we're seeing right now. And so that's a problem because, think about it. Supposedly the administration is saying, well, we're not going to tax anybody that makes less than $400,000. Well, that's ridiculous. Inflation is a tax on everybody, and it hits low-income people the hardest. So that tax and spend bill will increase inflation even further, creating even more impact on people who are working people that are really struggling with all of these inflation costs now, and like we've talked about, these energy costs. I was doing a radio show not too long ago, and one of the callers called in and said, winter's coming on. We're in North Dakota, winter's coming on. He says, what am I supposed to do? Should I buy food or heat my home? But it's looking like that's the challenge I'm going to have. And that tax and spend bill will just make it worse. And I believe the American people know that.
Does it get cold in North Dakota, John?
It sure does in the wintertime.
Leanne.
So it's clear that inflation and cost is your immediate concern. Is emissions overall also a concern, and what is the right balance then?
Well, we believe.
Yeah, so we have great solutions.
We can get into all. We believe that you can actually protect the environment without punishing the economy. I don't think this administration understands or believes that. We have remarkable, successful programs with carbon capture, sequestration. We all believe climate change is real. We believe that mankind is certainly contributing to that. And we also believe that if China and India don't do things, even if we were to go to zero emissions in the United States, the global emissions continue to go up. The U.S. emissions have been dropping for the last 15 years by a number of things that we've been doing. And we also believe that nuclear energy has to be a part of this mix. We needed all of the energy supply needs. The needs continue to go up across the board. We need oil, gas, coal, uranium for nuclear power. We need the wind. We need the solar. We have all of those things in Wyoming and the hydro. So we want to make sure the American people have affordable energy, and we want to make energy as clean as we can, as fast as we can, and do it in ways that don't increase costs. for American families.
The Democrats are proposing perhaps hundreds of billions of dollars of tax credits for renewables in multiple ways. Do you think that that is one of the path forward? I know you don't agree with everything, but is that a viable option?
What we need to do is an all of the above energy situation. What they're trying to do really is eliminate multiple forms of energy that we have here. There is a war on carbon-based fuels. And that's the target that Joe Biden drew on the back of American energy the day he came into office with killing the Keystone XL pipeline. You listen to his speeches, and well as what he's done with the banning the production out of Alaska, banning the moratorium on oil and gas on public lands. Yes.
Yeah, can I just say
Oh, sure.
something here, because this falls a lot into my state, but also the EPW committee. First of all, we have a surface transportation bill that we passed out of that committee, and a lot of these folks are on that committee. It was unanimous. In that committee, it's the first time we've ever had a climate chapter in that committee. To be able to figure out how to reduce emissions, which the biggest emitter of emissions is not the power sector, it's the transportation sector. So to begin to work on that together. We also need, and John mentioned CCUS, we have a 45Q tax credit that will help incentivize the capture of carbon dioxide, reusing it for either enhanced oil recovery or other things. But we can't get the infrastructure in to move the carbon through the pipelines because this administration is so anti-pipeline. So our solutions, I think, will lead to fewer emissions and have over the years. But we have to have the infrastructure to move forward on these things, and we're stymied at that as well.
And if I can just add, like I said, we're going to be rolling out an agenda that we believe addresses these issues, but it's building on what is already working. You know, the Secretary of Energy was in North Dakota recently, and she said that the United States doesn't have the moral authority in terms of our policies to stand up to China on these issues. That's absolutely incorrect. From 2005 to present, the United States has reduced our emissions by almost 15%. That's more than any other major economy in the world by far. The estimates are of increasing global greenhouse gas emissions globally are almost going to come 100% from non-OECD countries. So you look at where we are declining dramatically. Why? Because of the revolution in natural gas. That is a fact. So a big part of our plan is to continue to focus on what is working. If we are exporting more LNG to countries in Asia, India, China, Japan, Korea, we're already exporting to all of those countries right now. A dramatic increase in those exports of clean-burning American natural gas will have a dramatic impact on lowering global greenhouse gas emissions. That's a fact. So these are the kind of things we think we can do in terms of all of the above, but to address the global greenhouse gas emissions issues, we just think it's much more effective, and it's already working. Already working. We just need to build on it.
Can I just, one point along those lines, Leon, because you ask a really important question. It's easy, right now it's easy to be against everything Biden's doing because it's so awful. But if we would focus less on getting to zero in the United States, zero greenhouse gas emissions or zero, net zero by 2050, and focus more on bringing down global emissions, say 40%, and putting the pressure, whether it's through trade deals and geopolitical, pressures and carrot stick things. If we bring down global emissions 40% by 2050, it's a much greater reduction than the United States unilaterally disarming our own economy. Just one example. I think we focus more on the global problem and not so much on our unilateral disarmament.
And we'll have 4 answers for you, too. Well, this shows the passion on this issue. I mean, we had 10 senators that showed up, and 10 of them stayed for the beginning of the questioning, and then we still have 4 here. But this will be the last question because we're in the final minutes of the third vote.
Yeah, and kind of going off what Senator Kramer said, you guys have lamented that President Biden is going to this Glasgow conference and what he might say at the conference. In the world where the president took your advice, what message do you want him to deliver at the conference, and what would be a positive outcome from this in your eyes?
Well, it'd be a message that I had just talked about when the question to Leanne, which is we want to make energy as clean as we can, as fast as we can, and do it in ways that don't raise costs for consumers. And that we respect the environment, have a responsibility for the environment. And we can do this by protecting the environment without punishing the economy. We all believe that, and that's the focus. Thanks.
Right on.
Okay.